Everyone, welcome to another UnBinged success story. Today we have Kate here to share her experience in the UnBinged program with us. Kate, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to share this with us today.
Yes, so good to be here. I'm excited.
Yes, me too. You have a very, very inspiring story. So the first question I'll ask you is just, would you say that this program has resolved the issue of binge eating for you?
Yes, absolutely. I will say though that we met for about 20 weeks and there were good days and bad days. I definitely had to put in the work, but if you are committed, absolutely this program definitely has fixed everything, helped so much with my relationship with food and eating. So
Yeah, I'm glad you say that because it takes time, it takes effort, and it's not like a light switch, a one and done. It's kind of just there's good days and bad, and a transitional process is the healthiest way to go about it. And you do have to put in the effort and show up, and you did like week after week. So as a coach, that's all I can ask. I really appreciate everything you put into this, and that's why you've benefited so much.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it would be nice to hear, I think, a bit about your struggles with food in the past before this.
Yeah, so my struggle started around the age of 12, so about 10 years ago. I remember going on my first diet just because I think from home culture and I was a dancer, so like dance culture, I got in my mind that like girls were just supposed to diet and be smaller, smaller, smaller. So um, that kind of started this cycle of restriction and binging all the way through high school into college. I was bulimic for quite a few years. So yeah, things were pretty bad. And then around the age of 19, I kind of discovered intuitive eating. And that was like a breath of fresh air and definitely helped me get out of just like the really dark place that I was in. But eventually I kind of plateaued and still just like really was not confident in any of my food decisions, but didn't really know what else to do besides like follow this intuitive eating approach of like eat whatever, whenever, all of it, all the time.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so yeah, lots of that's a pretty deep struggle. Like to experience years of bulimia, that's a lot to handle. And this went all the way back to age 12. That's an early age to start struggling with this. Hey, and that's unfortunately not uncommon.
Yeah, as I nanny, and I see this kind of behavior in the kids that I'm with, which is really sad to me.
Very, yeah. So you had tried intuitive eating, and had you tried anything else to resolve this?
I read some books by like some therapists and eating disorder specialists, but I hadn't tried any other programs or anything.
Okay. So how would you say that this was different from intuitive eating?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing was how the program like includes learning healthy no's, and that was something that like immediately caught my attention when I found you, and I think really was like a game changer because my mindset with intuitive eating was just like follow your hunger cue, like I don't know, whatever your hunger wants, just eat everything, and I that was very overwhelming, and a lot of times I was eating like so much like just not great food and it was making me feel sick, and then I would restrict and be like, okay, I can't eat that, still in this cycle. So when I realized that like, oh, there can be a place of uh not restriction but also like you can have healthy no's, that was like a light bulb.
Yeah, I remember that was a something you said in the very beginning, and it was a theme throughout our work together. And I guess something maybe people would be wondering, a good question would be like, how do you differentiate restriction from what you'd consider a healthy no?
I think restriction now comes from a place of choosing something dependent on like how it will make me look, or kind of like, oh, this is less calorie, this is kind of going back into that like being the smaller mindset. And a healthy no would be like, man, how is this going to make me feel in an hour or tonight, in the morning? Or am I with people, like there's like a social aspect to eating. So, if I'm with my family celebrating, like I'm not probably gonna like say no to much. But if I'm by myself or maybe like after I've worked out and I know I need like fuel and nutrients. Sometimes I'll implement healthy no's then, just because I know like my body needs other things.
Great. Great. Yeah. Yeah, it really is the reasons we have for saying yes or no and the place that we make that decision from that determines if it's like restrictive or supportive, hey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Great. Okay, so before like you had started at a young age, you had the bulimia and the pressure to be small and the diets, and then you tried the intuitive eating, which is great that it helped, but we're still struggling without having boundaries or the no's. And so now that you've done this work and you've gone through the program, like how is your day-to-day experience with food different now?
It's so much better. Oh my gosh. So, before I was going to bed, waking up, spending all day thinking about food, how little I could eat, what was my next meal, what social events I could or couldn't go to based on food. Um, Basically, every decision I made was about food or how I looked. And so now there's just so much more freedom. I can have a meal and actually like pay attention to the conversation I'm having with someone rather than like be stressed about how many calories I'm eating or, the fact that I've eaten 2 carb heavy meals in one day. So yeah, there's so much more mental freedom to think about other things, to learn, to read books, to make art. Exercise, I would say, has become so much more enjoyable, and to just a way to de-stress, and really like be strong and like I think challenge myself rather than trying to burn off calories or discipline myself for not eating well.
Yeah, and exercise, that has been like a big part of your journey. That's another thing that can get really linked to diet culture, and it can be really supportive and it can be really, harmful and restrictive. I'm curious, how do you feel that like you have made exercise a really supportive, healthy part of your journey and not like a toxic element of it?
Yeah, it definitely was a process. I think even like implementing healthy meals into my exercise, if that makes sense. So like, some days if I'm feeling sick, I'm gonna be like, no, a healthy no right now is to not go on a run because that would be kind of like in that mindset of like, oh, I have to, run an hour every day. And I think being more in tune with my food decisions has made me more in tune with just how my body's feeling overall, and that has made me be able to make decisions about exercise. Like, oh, I'm really feeling tired today. I think it was because I didn't get a lot of sleep, and I don't know, I had something different for breakfast today, so like I'm just gonna go for a walk. And so yeah, not beating myself up about that and being very like confident in those decisions.
Yeah, I love that you talk about a healthy no there too. In reality, a healthy no with food, it's just an example of a boundary. And we need to have that with exercise and in all areas of life. So I like that you say it's helpful with saying no to food, but also with saying no to excessive exercise when you need rest, just as important, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Great. So what would you say were some of the key components? Like people would be wondering, okay, what actually happens in the program? What do you actually learn? What did you find were some key components that helped you to make this real sustainable change?
I would say the weekly calls and that accountability, like really helped me. I think knowing like, okay, next week we're going to talk about all of these things. What went well, what didn't, and that made me very conscious every day after every meal to be like, okay, what did go well, and what didn't, what could I work on and do better next time? Journaling all of those things, really putting like a lot of thought into it. So later now, I don't have to think so much about my food decisions. So I would say, yeah, that accountability on those calls definitely sets the program apart. And I think the different like aspects, it's very holistic. It's not just focusing on food and food choices. You're looking at self-care. You're looking at wheelhouse food. So what foods are easy? What can you realistically make yourself? Stress-free foods. Adventure. Making food like exciting. All of these different components to this like recovery process.
Yeah. You really know the principles. You kind of just list them off there, and that's great. And that's when you have that weekly practice and you always did your homework, you always came with your notes of your wins, your challenges, what you wanted to take out of the next session. And you practice that over a period of time. That thought process, the principles start to become your new go-to. And that's again credit to you and the effort that you put in. So good for that. Good for you with that. And the last thing that I'll ask you is just if someone is, because people will be watching and there's just natural self-doubt and skepticism. And what, a big reason that we share these stories is to bridge that gap, that people have hope and maybe they can see themselves in you and think maybe it is possible. So if someone was watching and kind of filled with that doubt or skepticism, just what would you honestly say to that person if they were considering giving this a shot?
Yeah, I would say honestly, like you have nothing to lose. If you're even thinking about, man, do I have a disordered like relationship with food, or do I struggle with this? You probably do, because if you were fine, then you wouldn't even be having those questions. And truly, like my testimony is a whole decade of struggling. And now just a couple of months later, like I truly can say I have so much freedom and confidence with my food decisions. So just like try it, be vulnerable and do the work, like really put in the work. And you'll see so much progress.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It's very, very well said. And it is possible if you do show up and take a chance, and so much is possible. It's so easy to think that it's not possible. And usually people just need like accountability, guidance, support, some technique. And like you said, in a couple of months, 2-3 months, everything can change. So again, I appreciate your work within the program. I appreciate you taking your time out of your day today to do this. And we'll end there. Do you have any last words for people watching before we finish?
I don't think so. I think just wanted to say thank you, honestly, for like this truly was life-changing. I was just so stuck in this like anxiety and like darkness that I never thought that I would get out of. I thought it was something that I would struggle with for the rest of my life. And here I am, able to travel and just, eat whatever and make these decisions with total confidence. And it was truly because of you. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been a great experience for me as well, start to finish. So thank you too.